This meeting is being recorded.
And welcome to our Research in Action podcast. Today we are exploring a very important topic, and the format is different from what we would have done previously. But today we want to engage you in a very meaningful and different way. And so today I have three interesting persons here, Drs. Jones, Drs. Garcia, and Drs. Mohammed, who will be extending discussion on the whole idea of sharing, disseminating your research. In a very meaningful way, we want to extend good afternoon greetings to all our listening and subscribed participants in the audience. We want you to ensure that you can always call in, and if you call in, we recognize that we will acknowledge you, and do keep in contact with the chat. And so without any further ado, we want to start our session and continue. So good afternoon all. We are seeing some of you in the audience. We are seeing your interaction. So please say hello as we're continuing. And certainly today we have a very well and experienced panel of speakers here. So today, one of the first thing I'd perhaps want to start with, and anyone can start, is the whole idea of impact. The impact and output. Sometimes that is used interchangeably in research when it comes to what is done after. Let's talk about that a bit.
Yes, Leroy, and I think it's a very important distinction to be made, especially where action research, disseminating the results of action research is concerned. When we speak of output, we're talking about the reporting of the research, recommendations, the findings, the results. And different ways are used to do that. Journal articles, publications, that kind of thing. The impact of the research, however, is what effect it has on transformation of current practice, so that it is improved and people benefit in a long-term way. So I am very happy that you made that clear distinction between the two.
Good. Yeah. But sometimes they use interchangeably, and so some persons do translate them as the same. Mm-hmm. Yes. I mean, what you...
I mean, for me, thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Looking forward to the discussion this evening. For me, coming from the background of traditional research, it was interesting to see that what we're accustomed to of research stopping at publication gave an extension to the research process, so to speak, and to see that now it could be used to inform a decision that could make a change for the better, that especially in educational research could impact the learning experience. That stood out as it made me immediately realize the difference between simply output and impact. It's no longer that is a hodgepodge and a mismatch or anything could go. No, it's one versus the other. It's really a separation.
Right.
It was clear for me.
Yes.
It's clear for me.
Yeah.
What is important to always remember, though, is the audience. The audience being impacted by the research that is disseminated, so that presenting the findings must be done using language that is clear and concise.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I also believe that for me, it's clear that we have to fit. It's fitness for purpose. If action research is fitness for purpose, then the sharing of that should also be within that format.
Yeah,
and we can't use a cookie cutter model and expect it to be
No,
impactful
at
from
all.
that sense.
At all.
So when I hear impact, I always think about influence.
Yes.
So what influence the research findings would have on a different situation, right? And this is one thing I try to remember whenever I hear output and impact. Impact, for me, really and truly speaking, to the influence my research or somebody else's research would have on a different situation. Yeah.
Yeah, but let's shift a little bit because I think when it comes to in terms of the output, there are traditional methods that we use.
Yeah,
Let's talk about those traditional methods, and then we'll move on to more exciting ways in which we can do that. Juliet, you want to go first?
Yes, so traditional methods such as writing up the research thesis or dissertation and using
Like reports.
reports. So you have the reporting of the research and many different ways
Yeah,
can
that's
be
true.
used, formats and so on. People can be very creative in their reporting of the research. The graphs and charts and tables are used to present more quantitative types of data, results for analysis, so that you have things like people accessing articles in Google Scholar and books, conference proceedings. So those are tried and true methods because those methods are peer-reviewed methods, and peer review is of critical importance in academia. But it's not just those methods that can be used, the traditional methods. You also have non-traditional methods, and I know we will get to that in time. Yes.
Yeah. After you write up your report, most times you engage in some form of presentation. You want to present your research now. And as educators, we often present other people's research in a classroom. So why not present
your own work?
our own work,
Exactly.
and this is another traditional way of disseminating your research. And I really find that it's a nice way to engage with the stakeholders and present your findings in an interactive way. And again, as you mentioned, if you're doing this, you need to tailor your message to meet the needs of your audience.
Yes.
So know your audience before you actually start thinking about creating your slide deck.
Exactly.
And another point when creating your presentation is to think about the time factor. Today everybody wants things fast and people busy, so you don't want to invite them to a presentation and you're going beyond the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Ms. Dr. Mohammed, can we then say that we can present our presentation in multiple pathways?
Yes.
And how would we do that? I mean, I'm seeing you hint into that. But how do we do our presentation in multiple pathways to meet those multiple audiences?
Right.
Give us some examples.
So, well, of course, you're going to use charts. You might use one or two videos in your presentation. When it comes to a presentation, I don't know if Mark might be able to share more on this point, but workshops, I think presentations would feed really well into workshops.
Definitely. For me, I always like workshops because it takes the presentation, it takes the written, and then it becomes this hybrid on steroids, if it were, because you get to present everything, yes, but then you have the rapid response of participation from the audience. So you're not just going in talking sage on the stage, you're really trying to interact and engage with the audience. So it, as Javed said, is the same concept or conditions of tailoring your content to your audience, and again committing to the time factor. So you don't want to bore people and you don't want to overburden people at the same time.
So
But go ahead.
In terms of not boring them, the workshop,
The actual workshop.
if they're working,
Yeah.
Well,
Hence the name workshop.
Yeah.
Right? So when you attend a workshop, you're going with the expectation of doing something.
Yeah.
Yes.
So prepare that workshop in a way that the persons are not passive. Let them be engaged in some sort of activity.
Yes.
Get them involved. probably get them involved in a way that they can apply your research findings to their own context right there in the room, and you can answer questions and give feedback right there and then.
And that
I-
makes it more participatory.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
this fits really well in an institution.
Yes.
You know, you invite your colleagues to a workshop and have fun.
Yes.
Yeah, and
I
the
agree.
thing that stands out to the workshops is that you get the chance to have all the stakeholders engaging with the findings, which does not necessarily always happen
Presentation.
with presentations
Yes.
or worse yet, written reports.
Yes.
Not everybody going to read a whole report.
Yes.
So you have people now who have a buy-in, have some stake, and are able to allow themselves to be heard by themselves. It's not just that I was a participant and that was it. But now I have some kind of loop closure, for want of a better description.
And if I may, in fact, the actual workshop may be seen as a different phase, because now you can still continue to collect some important and evaluate how the research has extension
Yes.
beyond.
Yes.
That's the thing. So we just start over the cycle.
And so you see where actual research gives that freedom to do
Yes,
that sort of thing. And I
yes.
think this is the exciting thing. But one of the more contemporary means, I think, in recent times has been social media.
Yes.
And I think many researchers are using it because it's current, it's popular, but it's also meaningful and very powerful. And especially when you use hashtags. When because hashtags allow you to target the information to the audience, to the particular audience, or I might be interested in a particular area, but the person who's telling me that I may not necessarily want to follow them.
True.
But I follow the hashtag, and the person hashtag that, and I follow the hashtag. And in academia, in research, we do that a lot because we follow. I'll tell you this. I shouldn't be saying this too loud. I have been spending less time going to peer-reviewed journals as I would have had 10 years ago. Because the people I follow and the hashtags I follow, they freely send their on Twitter. By the way, if you
Yes.
want to follow me on Twitter, is Leroy H at Leroy H. And I find it very important because that way I build my own personal learning network and build value from that
Yes,
sense.
yes.
So that to me becomes a very powerful, meaningful way because you can spread your audience and reach from
I know,
there.
it's
Yes.
interesting that you mentioned Twitter because the other day recently at a local university, I actually saw somebody presenting something on how to use Twitter in academia.
Yes.
And it was interesting because these are things you never hear about back in the days. You say hashtag and I laugh. Because I remember the punky on the phone or the tic-tac-toe sign, as we used to
Yes.
call it when it now came out. But now that you can have these things aligned to terms that when people search it, it's going to pop.
Yes.
Make it
Yes.
easy.
Yeah, it now
Convenience.
Yeah,
Looking
and
for convenience.
you're opening the door to a whole different dynamic that would never interact with research long ago. So you have all the ages, all the diasporas, all the geographic locations too that you could reach. But of course, with any social media, you have to remember again that people leave comments, they leave messages and feedback. So after you post, don't just leave it dead. You have to keep
Yes.
checking and keep
And
active.
ubiquity, the word ubiquitous comes to mind. And as you were talking, I remembered a joke. Well, I think it was a serious joke. A colleague of ours asked one day, why not TikTok? Why not?
TikTok, why not?
I did hear that.
And you see, the reality is, the reality is that we live in a digital age.
Yeah.
So we need to capitalize on
Yeah.
the media, the
Yeah.
use of media in disseminating research, action research.
So you're
Yes.
reaching the masses where they are.
Precisely.
You're reaching the masses, and that's
Yes.
important because, again, fitness for purpose.
Yes.
And it's important
Yes.
because here it is, we are engaging persons beyond the remit of the research. But I
Yes.
think we will get very excited here to continue, but we can't. We have to really continue.
Yes.
We wanna pause for a short word of from our sponsors, and we'll be back soon.
Welcome to this video on disseminating action research findings. After conducting your action research, it is important to share the results with relevant stakeholders and communicate the impact of your intervention. One of the most common methods of disseminating action research findings is through written reports. Written reports can be shared in various formats, such as academic papers, policy briefs, or technical reports. It's important to ensure that the report is clear, concise, well organized, and visually appealing. Presentations are another effective method for disseminating action research findings. Presentations are interactive and engaging and can be presented to various audiences such as policymakers, practitioners, or your fellow colleagues. As a researcher, you should have a clear and concise message and use appropriate visuals to support your message. Workshops provide an opportunity for stakeholders to engage with and apply the research findings. This method is more hands-on and provides an interactive, engaging environment. It is important to ensure that the workshop is customized according to the audience and that the content is covered within the time allotted. Social media is also used to disseminate action research findings. It can be used to share research findings with a wider audience and engage with your stakeholders in real time. To effectively use social media, establish a clear message, use appropriate hashtags, and be prepared to engage with stakeholders who may respond to your message. So, disseminating action research findings is crucial for communicating the impact of your intervention. Depending on the methodology you choose to disseminate your research findings, be sure to consider the audience and tailor the language, content, and format accordingly. Also, consider the visual presentation of the message and be prepared to engage with stakeholders.
And welcome back to our Research in Action. And we are certainly inviting you to call in. Feel free to call in. Let's engage. We want to hear what are these some of the means in which you use to share your research. Which of these have you used, and which one you find so exciting? Which one you think has great potential for your research, particularly since our discussion yesterday? And so we want you to feel free to call out. Feel free to text in the text or call in using the mic.
And when you're calling in too, it would be nice if you can, just give a quick background as to your field, your area, your subject area, and that will help us, make the discussion a little livelier, and we could understand the realm or the different factors that would be impacting your research expertise, so to speak. So feel free. We're looking out for the phone calls. We're ready, willing to hear you.
Any giveaways today, Dr.
I'll save it for the person who surprises the calls.
All right.
All right. I think we have a special just in store for the person who's just gonna call and indicate that they're gonna call and be part of this podcast. We're waiting to hear from you, and certainly we want to say thanks to our sponsors, Roytech, the Roytech, if I would say that in terms of doing that. We want to move on because we recognize that we have quite a bit to discuss and exciting things.
Yeah.
And I know it's exciting because we want to think of non-traditional ways in which we can, as practitioners, disseminate our research, share our research, get persons to be active. And I think one of those things is within the creative arts. And I know Dr. Jones, you smile a lot because I know that you're aligned with creative arts a lot.
Yes.
Is there anything you can share with us in terms from the performance side?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Leroy. The performative arts is a very powerful way of disseminating research. It's used in other spheres of activity, and researchers have actually used the theater and the drama, role play, improvisation. I myself used verbatim interview data to create a screenplay as part of my reporting on my research that I had done, so that there are endless possibilities when it comes to creativity. you know, that allows for a kind of performance dialogy
Yeah.
that can then engage a wide audience of persons. So definitely, yes.
You know, you're talking about that, and my mind just falling on a situation. I was doing some research on dementia, and
For good reason now.
yeah, for good reason. And you know, I want to learn more about it. You know, for obvious reasons. You know, families and so on. And one click led to another, and I ended up on a website. I read some text, and then I scrolled down a little lower, and I stumbled on a video. So I hit play, and there it is. Somebody put their entire research findings in a film format.
A documentary.
Something very, very much like a documentary. And to me, I think that was awesome, because I prefer to watch a video than have to read all this text. And
Yes.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, you know.
And I'm
So
sure
I
when-
get where you're coming
yeah.
from in
Yes.
terms of the creative aspects, you know.
And I'm sure with the creativity, I'm sure you would remember this stuff from
Yeah.
dementia. No pun
No
intended.
pun, yeah.
But I'm sure you know it's gonna stick with the audience. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it too, and I'm remembering somebody did this thing in Snakes and Ladders, and I'm like,
Yes.
what?
Yes.
But you know, it was interesting because they used Snakes and Ladders to discuss the experiences and the perceptions of youths and adults with respect to poverty.
Wow.
I could not see it until I saw it. I couldn't understand it until I saw it. And it makes a good plug for using games, board games. You really have to be creative, and it falls so nicely again, you know, in the framework of action research, of being collaborative. Because not everybody's creative. I am not, but Dr. Jones is here, so I try to, as much as I could, partner. And it when you think of things like that, you turn things into real life experiences to a game.
Yeah.
You're gonna remember it. It gives them a different attachment emotionally, and they put themselves in the situation. It builds empathy.
Yes, it definitely builds empathy, and it gives deeper insight into the research issue.
It does.
And it allows the researcher, in presenting his or her findings, to chunk it as well, and to now use language that even the layperson can understand. Because ultimately the goal is to make life better for
Yeah.
society.
Change.
Change. Transformation.
Transformational change.
Yes.
And what is the power of action research?
it's integral to action
Very-
research.
very important
Change.
to action
Transformation.
And
yes.
and I want to add here as well. I think this has been for me more recent, because while we say illustrations and graphs and so forth, there is that movement to use a lot of infographics.
Yes.
I don't know if any of you have been using
Yes,
infographics, but I just love them. I don't know why. I just love infographics.
Yeah.
Yes.
Any feedback in terms of
well, you know, from the time you started to talk about graphics, you're talking about my field. I love graphic designing. So I've noticed that there's a shift in presenting information using more graphics, especially when there are so many easy to use tools that's available for free, right? So persons are utilizing these tools and bringing their research in such a way that they are able to graphically represent the information. So with infographics, illustrations, and even comics, people are using that to communicate their research findings clearly and transparently.
But when they say free, you mean like free, right?
Yeah, free.
So if people, like, what's one or two that they could use?
Well, I'll just give
Well,
you
just one,
I'll just
yeah.
give you one, because
I
I'm
mean, we ain't getting sponsored for it,
confident
right.
about this one.
Right.
Canva. So Canva, you can create a free account using your personal email address, or if you're attached to any university, you use the university email address and you get an edu license, which affords you much more presets or infographics or
Right.
preset
Or templates and
templates
things.
to
Oh,
choose from.
nice.
Similar to the Pro.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Researchers are not really graphic designers, you know, but when you have tools that allows you to drag and drop,
Yes.
it gives you that opportunity to, as the researcher, put your research findings in a graphic format. Yeah.
I like that.
And these methods definitely have unique advantages
Yeah.
that would allow for creative creative input, creative forms of dissemination of research, which makes it more interesting.
Very interested indeed, and we see the various ways in which persons are not limited. They are very creative people. We are not just interested in the text, but we are also interested in the audio. We are also interested in the video, and so this is where even a podcast
Yes.
can be a very powerful means of also disseminating your information.
For sure.
Salami slice. I've always learned that. Salami slice your research.
Yes,
And
yes.
multiple pathways. Because again,
Yes.
we spoke about the illustrations, and I think this is where universal design for learning comes in very useful, because
Definitely.
we recognize the need to have multiple forms of representation.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and that's important, especially if we said earlier, fitness for purpose,
Yes.
and meeting the audiences where they are.
So even blogs and vlogs, you would encourage
Yes,
researchers,
I would.
action researchers.
I
to
would, and I
use.
do know there are a number of persons in society who are active with the criminology area, with persons who have a particular strong interest. They're able to keep that connection with community because their blog is very popular.
Yes.
You know, and from that standpoint,
Yes.
and so it's about the lived experiences that we
yes.
can certainly do that and so forth. But we certainly do not want to forget that at the end of all of this, return on investments.
Yes.
You may have gotten a grant, you may have received a grant.
Yes.
Return on effort. You may have worked 2, 3, 4 years.
Yes.
And there is something, and this is where the impact comes in, the need for us to measure.
Yes.
I don't know if any of us want to talk about that before we move on to our next segment. But in terms of doing that, hold on, let's wait for that. Let's wait for that, and we'll because I know that we can.
Well,
We'll come back. Let's hear a short ad.
Yeah.
Let's hear the short ad, and then we will come back.
It happens every year, like clockwork. They come at me from everywhere with 5 CXC passes. Their desire, business degrees. I figured that they needed full-time classes, so I sent them to the UE School of Business and Applied Studies, Roy Tech. They had lapped it up. The others do something during the day. They call it work. So I point this one dame to Roy Tech's evening and weekend classes. She said, "Oh my gosh, you saved my career." And I said, "I know." This kid, real smart, looks up roytech.edu and gets all the info on the Roy Tech learning experience. Apply now at Henry Street, Port of Spain, or Naparima College, San Fernando. Come to Roy Tech for the better accepted business degree.
yeah.
All right, we're back, and during this segment, we certainly got some excitement, and I want Dr. Mohammed to repeat what he was saying during that segment, so we don't lose it. All right, so that we can share it.
Well, I just wanted to highlight a scenario, right, where I work. I've started let's call it a social media site for the university I'm working in, right? And with that, I'm able now to showcase some of the faculty research using multiple pathways.
Yes.
So we may do a video recording, so we can ask a faculty member to come in and do a 3 to 5 minutes, nothing more than that, video on their research, and we post it. And then one thing would lead to another. Person will start commenting and bringing other types of research, and then it just creates an awesome environment, and we use the hashtags so we can quickly find the topics and so on and so forth.
Network.
It's a full
Okay.
network.
Social network.
Yeah, it is a social network.
Social network.
That's
But we're
great.
using the multiple pathways there. The application of it is inside that that whole network. And one good thing that is afforded to us is data.
Yes.
The data. And I know you're going to talk about that now. So I don't want to go down that road just yet, but the data is very important for us in measuring the impact.
I mean, you can't go wrong. You need to realize that there's data lying in everything.
But before you even, if Dr. Hillier, if you allow me, right?
Yes, yes.
The thing about creating a site or a social media network, community, what have you, you have to think about branding. Because it's easy to create a site, but what's the sense? What's the purpose of creating a site and you have no followers? You have nobody on it. So you have to give it some thought. Think about the name. Think about how you're gonna advertise, how you're gonna market, showcase. All of these things will help with the impact in measuring impact. So you have to give it some thought. Come up with branding ideas and so on.
And as you mentioned, I agree with everything you've said. As you mentioned, data. I had the thought that it's so important in education to use data effectively.
Yep.
Again, impact is key in disseminating our research. And we talk about data-driven teaching and learning.
Yes.
Data-driven, some people call it instruction. Data-driven assessment. Assessment for learning that is informed by evidence from the data.
Wow.
So that's important.
I'm getting excited here, and I don't want to get too excited because I do know we have a time constraint and so forth. But certainly, I want for us to really focus a little bit, and we've been hinting to it. Dr. Mohammed, you've hinted to that, and in terms of the measuring impact, we talk about return on investment, return on efforts. What are some of the practical ways, and what are some of the ways in which we do that? And because I think our audience, and audience, by the way, please feel free to indicate in the chat. We're not hearing from you, and so certainly we want you to stay connected with us as we continue. But I'd really want to hear what are some of the ways in which we can measure.
Measurement puts meaning to it. It makes you not just do the work of a madman. You have to have a gauge to what you're doing. So if I put in X, I am looking for a certain return, as you mentioned earlier, return on my investment if it was dollars and cents. And don't forget there's a dollars and cents aspect to your time.
Yes.
You
So
cannot
Yes.
deny that.
Talking about roti. Talking about roti. Return on time invested.
Yes.
Oh no, you're correct. You're correct.
You started a hot topic there, but all right. That roti, it really helps. It makes you think along the lines of how am I now going to show effectiveness of the intervention that I've tried. So perhaps in my class I realized that engagement is dipping, or perhaps even there's a good very good up-to-date application. People were struggling in putting together content during the pandemic, and then a group that I came across thought that a simple thing like throwing up a green sheet behind them and putting the same PowerPoint slide that they put to the students, that the students are, Miss or Sir, you're giving us the slides, those same slides and that content, if they put it behind them on the green screen and they stood in front of it, very, very low tech, very low impact mechanism. You want to be able to see how that really impacted. Did it have an impact? How could I measure the effectiveness of, or demonstrate the effectiveness of that? So if there's no measurement, then technically there's no value to what I do, because nobody knows what is the value of it. So I have to demonstrate the effectiveness, and because it realizes my value, I would keep doing it. So I keep looking for a way to up the ante and improve what I'm doing. And of course, I'm going to make sure that this is communicated, as we said in the first segment, with those who are stakeholders in the framework of that research. You must do that.
Yes, Mark, and I think that's very important as well, Dr. Hill, Leroy. What Mark just said, because measuring the impact of our action research, as Mark said, helps us to identify areas for improvement. We then make changes to our interventions to achieve better outcomes. Cycle of action research again. And I'd like to add that measuring impact can help us to ensure that our research is relevant and responsive to the needs of the communities we serve.
Yeah.
We don't do research in a vacuum. It has to be relevant and responsive to the needs of the communities we serve. And those of us, especially in education, understand the far-reaching implications of that.
But how do we get that feedback? How do we really get that feedback?
I think for us the methods, before we do that, I'd really want to agree with Dr. Jones.
Juliet.
We want to look at the methods in a while, but I thought that was deep and wide, as the song would go. It's deep because the relevance in terms of the people we serve. Who do we serve?
Yeah.
Who do we serve? And is it the funding agency? Is it those who took part in the research? If it's collaborative, if it's participatory, how do we ensure that that has the wider in terms of measurement? And I think this is exciting, and I kind of digress in here, but I had to reflect on that when you said that. It really meant that point to me. But Dr. Mohammed, go straight ahead in terms of methods. What are some of those methods?
Since we're going to have first name basis, J is fine, right? So I'm right. So I'm thinking about the qualitative aspect of getting that feedback. You know. And this approach will involve things like, of course, analysis of non-numerical data, right? Because you don't want to hear quantitative, you think of numbers, but the qualitative now, you want to probably conduct some interviews, have some focus groups, make some observations and document it, right? All of these all of these strategies, it's very useful to us in understanding the experiences and perspectives of the participants, right? They need to know how they have been, we need to know how they have been affected by the intervention or our research findings.
Yeah, I think, interviews and focus groups, they build so much on what we already captured through a survey or a questionnaire.
Yeah.
Yes.
A survey or a questionnaire, we could really capture like a rating score, or we could have a checklist, and we just ticking off frequencies as to how many times the student did this or did that. But when we have the interview and the focus group to put together with that now, it really does a lot more. We're not underestimating quantitative methods.
No.
We know that you need it. It's you see relations. You could still see changes, measure changes in behavior and knowledge outcomes, those kind of things. But we're looking at you acknowledge the survey is standardized as performance metrics, but you still need a little piece extra that adds value to even you as the researcher. It validates why you did what you did and makes you want to keep doing it in different iterations, because as a teacher, researcher, all of your clients or your students are going to vary.
Yeah.
So you can't think that this is going to work for everybody.
No.
Exactly.
You have to keep checking in and changing.
And I'm thinking, sorry, Dr. Jones. Sorry. Okay. I'm thinking here now. Let's say I create a YouTube channel solely designated for disseminating research. People could leave comments.
Yes.
We can use those comments as the qualitative evidence and put it as part of our measurables, our metrics. You know, your Twitter your podcast that you all these comments people leave. Those are things that we need to gather, and it's very important for us now to present that elsewhere. Because we want to show the impact.
So, what you're telling me is that,
Yeah.
I mean, I see it, So I could use my Zoom chat comments and pull themes from that to build on what I did.
Why not?
That's a suggestion.
Why not? Creativity.
I'm going
is
to
here.
try that from
It's
next
all about
semester.
creativity.
I'm going to try that from
Just
next
make
semester.
sure you're ethical and don't go writing your own comments. All right?
And I feel, as you mentioned, ethics too, I'll have to mention to the students that I am going to, what you say is possibly going to be used.
And as my colleagues are speaking, Doctors Mohammed and what's your name
Mark.
again? And Dr. Mark and Dr. Hill here, I am thinking about my own experience of disseminating research. I need to do more of it. So this is definitely helping me.
I think we all guilty.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I am thinking, my experience saying when I present at conferences, share the research findings at conferences and share with them the research process and so on. Inside of that, I am prompted to begin to reflect even more deeply on what I did and to think in terms of opportunities for further research,
You see?
deepening the research, so that I'm thinking Brookfield, remind me of the lenses.
Well, you have the student,
yes,
you had the peer, you had the scholarship of teaching and learning.
Right.
All right, and so I think that there is certainly helpful. And I'm really, really excited about the discussion and where it's going. But if I were to also, Javed, you mentioned about the comments. But at the back end, in your YouTube channel, you have a lot of analytics.
Right. Well.
Learning analytics, and
Exactly.
you can certainly do that. There's some persons who actually present their findings in a course. They actually do a free course. And then the data and information that they collect becomes the next phase of the research. This is so wonderful.
It would be nice to see in the chat, if anyone
Yes.
had experience in disseminating. I mean, you don't need to put details, but just a yes and no. How long ago you tried it? Have you really tried disseminating your findings in a different and non-traditional way, or what have you used to measure the effectiveness of your work? We do not work in vain. If it's one thing, we don't waste time and we don't want to work in vain.
I see a caller. I don't know. I'm seeing it coming in. Can I hear that caller? I'm hearing caller Anthea. Is it? I'm seeing that coming in. We're not hearing you.
Yeah, I guess I was calling. I didn't even realize I dialed that phone away. What was I calling about again? I would say I have this ongoing research going in my head that I haven't written up. And every time I teach the particular course, I add to my body of my findings. And I share what happened with previous groups with the students so that they understand how they can use the particular item. And I keep telling them, okay, when you give me your responses, I'll probably be using it in a research paper, but I still haven't written the research paper yet. But every single time I keep adding to it. And what I always found is that it's a math topic, but not really math. So it's very creative. And I myself did not realize the power of it until I tried it with the students, and based upon their responses, every single semester, I realized how powerful this is. And I think, I'm going to continue doing it, and I'm going to build on it, and I'm going to develop it even more. But that all comes out from how the students respond to it. We respond to this particular, it's an assessment that I use with them. And
I was not going to ask you a bit about it,
it's something that I told them about. The first time I used it, it was in the B.Ed course at Roy Tech. And I had been doing it in a math course. It's using mandalas. You know the mandala?
Mandalas.
Yes. And I told my students about it in the course, and I said I've been thinking of putting it in as one of the assessment items. But no, it's so packed with other things. And at the end of that term, based upon what I had said, one of the students did it as a free activity and included it. And when I sat and I read her reflection on it, I was, oh my goodness, I have to start putting this in now. So the very next time I taught the course, I included it as one of the actual pieces that they had to create for me. And then based upon the responses from the students, that particular time, I was, oh my goodness, I have to put more marks towards this because it's so powerful. Look at the things I'm finding out.
Yeah.
And every time I try to refine it a little bit more. And the thing is that everybody knows what a mandala is, a mandala. That circular thing that you see in adult coloring books.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember one of my students telling me when I was explaining to them that it had to be, well, trying to put the math back into it, symmetrical, and it had to be, you had to utilize at least 3 different mathematical shapes within it. One student told me point blank, Miss, I do not see how maths could explain my life. Maths cannot explain my life. Something mathematical cannot explain my life. Because that's the reflection they had to do. They had to create one and it had to represent them and their growth as a person or as a mathematician. At the end of the semester, when that girl handed it up, she was like, Miss, I can't believe this. I cried when I was doing it. It's so powerful. I didn't believe maths could explain my life. And again, so you know, from that, I'm getting all the justifications from them for me including this piece. I'm building in my mind only the research paper that I'm supposed to write. But I'm using their results and the results of this because I mean I'm there. I know I have all my background, I have all my literature and everything because I went to the literature before I decided to use it.
Right.
So you know it's all action researchable, but not fully conceptualized as an actual action research report. And then what I try to do is also to just share previous students their results, their particular mandalas that they created and their reflections, parts of it that I could share, that is, with future students, with the current students, current group of students. And then I'm always blown away by what I eventually get from a new group. And just waiting now to share that with the next group. So yeah, I suppose you will see that paper from me one of these days.
We look forward to seeing it, Leroy. And as Anthea was speaking, I remembered what she's talking about is really something I think that's very powerful. And I thought about something that a colleague of mine at Birmingham University shared with me some time ago, the whole concept and practice of research-led teaching. And what Anthea shared brought that back to my mind.
And I'm also reflecting that it's also critically reflective teaching practices because Anthea used a cycle of wonderment, as some would call it, because she wondered and reflected critically in what she did, the utility of that approach. And immediately, Anthea, you took a step back. So I don't know if you can actually see some of the reflective models. I'll tell you this, we do reflective and critical reflecting all the time as practitioners. We may not have a model that we call it, but we do it. We do it. And I think this is where some researchers and practitioners are trying to put a illustration or a process to it, but certainly as practitioners, we recognize that in order for us to make that movement, Anthea, which is what you're talking about, putting towards a paper, I think it would be a very good idea in perhaps having a focus group with other persons or other faculty members who perhaps feel similar wonderment about that whole process. And I think doing it together with someone might make it a little bit more easier for you because of your busy schedule and other things. I'm sure that this is something, but I am really, really excited by this. I'm seeing another caller coming in.
But just before we take that caller,
we're going to put that call on hold. Hold on.
Anthea, I am a man, I always like to choke fire. So we're not just waiting for your paper, but we want to see some non-traditional.
Yeah.
I mean, what you spoke about, I am imagining this in a
Yes.
simple 5-minute YouTube video
Yes.
with your pop-ups coming in
Yes.
of some of the things that students said,
Yes.
themes, so many word clouds, and you're talking, and in 5 minutes, I will.
Yeah.
I picturing it already.
Yes.
Already. Easy.
Actually, just to maybe not to give away the whole thing, but in my conceptualization, that I would probably be creating a mandala as I talk, so that
Nice.
my whole process would be me creating that
Yeah.
mandala of my experiences using the mandala as a teaching tool.
Lovely.
So
So
that
mandala
the
in
colors, I would explain what they all mean and everything as I build my mandala. Because there are a whole lot of apps now, as you talked about, on social media, I could download. Actually, that's what I do now. I started off using this in a geometry class I taught, where students had to use a compass to create it. So now I tell students, find an app, download it, have the mandala, color it, and tell me about the whole process. So
Yeah.
it has gone through, and I actually am thinking that when I do put it together, I need to do it. I need to do it, not just show it, if you understand. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And I think it's through that process of doing that we come to know of its worth and value, and in part because we recognize that we can talk about things for now until eternity, but until we're able to translate that into practice, I think that's where we get an exciting and point of aha experience. I'm making sense of this. I've been taught this theory, I've been taught of this, I've read about it, I'm now researching it, but now I'm now translating this in practice, and all of a sudden everything just awakens for me, because now my research has greater reach beyond. And when we spoke about philosophy in terms of worldview, it becomes more tangible. It becomes more real, because
Yes.
it moves from the paper to the theory into practice, informing and changing lives. And that life obviously also is myself,
Yes.
through my wonderments
Yes.
and my thinking. This is where Jack Whitehead and Jean McNeve thinks about the living theories and so forth. As we are speaking here, Anthea, I'm thinking this is an ideal opportunity for we're using a non-traditional approach. I don't know, I think 2 persons from Roytech attended our UB faculty cafe, where you sat around a table and you share some of these findings, and so this is perhaps an opportunity. But let's hold for this, and then let me take the other caller who's on the line. I'm seeing the other caller. Can you go ahead, caller, please? Go ahead. I think we lost that caller.
Caller, hello?
Yes, I'm seeing the caller. Kevin? Kevin, are you still there?
Yes, I am, Kevin. Yeah.
Great.
Mike.
I know Kevin called the other day about macroeconomic problems. And it's interesting, Kevin, when you think about it, could you, what's the word I'm looking for? Imagine or come up with an idea as to how you could think about, I'm assuming that you're teaching something like econ or one of those things when you use those terms. How you can use action research findings in a sexy way, in that merge with the macroeconomic issues that we face locally. What do you think?
All right, interesting. I'll try not to steal your idea. The idea I got from my question. I actually had one on how did the pandemic / online learning affect the GDP of Caribbean countries, as well as the general effect of distance learning on the GDP of Caribbean countries. So that was one of the 2 or 3 ideas I had when I saw the whole action research outline and criteria. Yeah.
I know it would be good. Just adding more meat to the pot. It would be good to you think about not just the online learning, but to spice it up. The investment that went into the online learning, the technology that was bought, teachers, a lot of them spent out of their pocket. And that's just secondary school teachers. We're not even talking about what tertiary level had to do. What is the ROI with respect to your own practice and GDP? That is an interesting way to formulate it.
Okay, nice. But the only problem in that aspect is pulling the data, which is usually the challenge with.
Yeah, I know that sounds like it calls for. That sounds like it calls for a step back and think about all the different stakeholders, the peers, the this one, the that one we could find from. But it does sound promising. It does sound promising.
Yes,
And
definitely.
perhaps
Must
some
collaborate.
collaboration,
Yeah,
yes.
must collaborate.
Collaboration, yes.
Must collaborate. And that's
Thank
good,
you.
man. That's good. We're getting some interesting ideas, man. And it's good that when we get ideas, we sit down, we talk, we bounce ideas make each other sharper, and it's the same for people who call in. You call with your ideas, and we're able to dialogue very quickly and see if we
Yeah.
could come up with a
Yes.
quick fix or something to build on
But-
the work.
All these ideas, it's nice, but I really want to hear from someone who actually conducted their research. It doesn't have to be action research, it could just be research. How they share that information.
Traditional and non-traditional.
It doesn't
Yes.
matter.
Anyone
Yes.
else?
How you share that information. There's so many ways.
Yeah.
I know people travel to conferences.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's interesting because I just came from a Dissemination conference, and I presented my paper on election spending in resource-rich economies.
Nice.
Well, this research was long in the making. I think I initially planted the seed in 2019, and went away, came back, and eventually got a functioning sample in terms of the countries. So I used about 103 countries. So that's why I'm always focused on the macroeconomy, because probably about 2 or 3 of my studies would have been on countries and a large panel of countries. So flesh it out. So I ran the data first to ensure I was getting some promising results, and then I filled in the blanks after in terms of the literature review, the discussion, tightened up on the methodology and everything. So yeah.
So Kevin, in your dissemination and presentation, whichever format, what I could expect to see is some kind of interactive map or globe that as you turn, you get a hotspot and you click on it and you see the spending specific to this one country, and then you break them up by regions, and now you could get findings specific to a region, to a resource rich, as you call it, I think it was.
Resource-rich economies, yeah.
Yeah, you see how the interactivity
Yeah.
Yes.
aspect of that presentation could make things wow.
Yeah.
And
Immediately I'm thinking, Kevin, in a way of extending your research, if you have a portal that has the information that Mark is mentioning here in terms of that approach, I mean, using the technology and tools. We mentioned infographics, but I'll be happy here. I know Mr. Javed would be happy to explain to you how you could use H5P. And H5P is a free tool. It's open source that you can use to create that interactivity to see, and that data that you're collecting in the back end from your portal or whatever can be perhaps give you the extended excitement in your research. So this is really exciting.
Yeah. So
Great, thank you. I'll check it out.
the thing about it is many researchers conduct research and it goes on a shelf.
Yeah.
Or it's presented at a conference, one group of persons,
Yes.
and that's it. But really and truly, after you conduct this research, you did all this nice hard work. Come on, we don't want to just leave it on a shelf or put it under lock and key only to one group of persons. We need to be able to share it with everyone, right? Because that's why we do the research. We want to share this information, not just to find something out or pose find solutions and make recommendations. We need to share it. So Kevin, you went to the conference, you share that information, you're back home now. I encourage you to find a way to share that same information here in your classroom with your colleagues, Facebook. It's so many options. It's available.
And I personally am really excited and looking forward to what we're going to see in the not too distant future in terms of research being disseminated about faculty-led action research in the Roy Tech context.
Yes. I thought, Dr. Jones, you were going to say a creative element from the Kevin's research. I would have loved to hear that. I would have loved to hear that. I see, Sheva, you're saying that you're getting many ideas. So many ideas, and that's the idea, but we also believe that you have some ideas to share with us, and we certainly want to also think of this as a collaborative event. And so we see two additional callers on the line. I'm seeing my name coming in here. I'm seeing Earl. Earl, are you still with us? Earl, are you still with us?
Yeah, and I was thinking about an idea. I teach quantitative methods. So I teach leadership. I also teach quantitative methods. And we have some heuristic models which are not really difficult. And I've been thinking of how to create some kind of animation so that students could walk in the experience. A sort of almost like a virtual using avatars and so on like that. So they can actually walk in the experience and do it. Like, usually we demonstrated using Excel and so I find, well, I'm bored by it now in a sense. Eh? There's where the students' own avatar can walk and teach a lesson.
So you want to put QM? You want to put QM in the metaverse?
Yes.
Yeah. So what you could look into is how you could use AR, augmented reality, or VR, virtual reality. So perhaps that could be like an addition to your framework, your literature, as to how, as we discussed in past episodes of our podcast, how we can build on research, and we want to use what is available to us, what other people have done, whether it has worked, how they explained it. If it's once they explain how to do it, the way that it is explained could guide us into not replicating it, but to using it as a guide. And there's a lot of work being done now on AR, VR, and it would be great that more work be done, especially in the application to the classroom context and to the learning experience, because people think AR, VR. Long ago we used to think sports and video games, full stop. But there's so much that we can use AR, VR. So you have websites like Avatoon, that you can use to create these avatars that you're thinking about. Of course, you want to look at in every website search or tool search, you want to look at the ethics, the copyright, the costs, weigh those pros and cons. I'm not just sending you to go and do whatever you please. So just keep those things in mind. But there is literally a whole world out there when it comes to AR, VR. Whole world.
One of the experiences I can share, sometimes I do practicums for diploma students, and it's a diploma, so you have to do a practicum, and I found a problem with students' language skills in terms of like run-on sentences. So what I did in one of the classes, in their first class, they did quizzes, and those students were so excited. I mean, I was shocked by their own response. They said, "So we like this." So it was a way in which I got them to address some challenges in language, in linguistic, and it was not threatening. Sometimes people always say, "You all are just learners, and you can't write." People have that attitude, but instead I engage in a game. And those students were so excited because sometimes when you're teaching, people think if I do a game, it will take out from the teaching time. I found was that I got more involvement, and the students in their own time went and did quizzes themselves. Show them that they can go on a quiz and you can compete against other students, people who don't see all over the world. And when they saw that, I could be number one. So it addressed the need. There was also a teaching component in it. So it addressed that gap. And there's something I've been thinking about, even in general skills. like where you have courses where students have to write essays and stuff, to infuse in the curriculum those kind of elements to build on their own the skills that they would need to be successful in the course.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned that. I don't know what do you use? What did you use for the quizzes?
I use quizzes. It's actually an application called
quizzes itself. Right. Yeah, because we try to advocate as many as possible. I think earlier in another episode of our podcast, we discussed the retention span of learners, and the fact that people are more now given to more to the point descriptions and ideas. So even things like how we phrase a quiz or how we structure it, the tool that we use, quizzes, Kahoot, very popular. I think every Tom, Dick, and Harry was making Kahoot through the whole of COVID on a Friday night to keep occupied.
Listen, that was even in the industry too.
Yeah.
During a workshop or even a meeting, the session might start with a Kahoot.
And it's ideal. It's a good icebreaker. It's a good mental break.
But guys, on that note, could we use AR and VR technologies to disseminate our research as well?
Yes, I would perhaps go to the time when I got glued to Second Life. I don't know if any of you followed Second Life, and I eventually got off on it because it got really weird. But certainly, I saw within Second Life, which is a really universities that had a particular forum that persons attended, because now they were mixing the kind of video field and they had a thing. I haven't been following it much, but I think now persons have, because there are the various platforms now, and by the way, if you're interested in VR or augmented reality, we are committed to supporting you. We do have some clinics. We are partnering together with Open Campus, and we are putting on some sessions. So if you're interested, anybody who's interested, please reach out to the Settle team, and we will certainly include you in the clinics. Collaborate and that's important, because we recognize that you can enrich your teaching and learning from that standpoint.
Yes.
I just wanted to pop in here quickly.
Yes.
That Earl Brown, Mr. Brown, and I were the two who attended the faculty cafe last week. And I know where Mr. Brown was coming from, because we looked at the presentation from Karen Roseman on immersive learning.
Yes.
And went on to the platform, because I had it saved, Eon XR, and we put our names down for the training. And we were just concerned that because we were from UI Tech, that we may not be able to participate. And I just wanted to make sure that we can, and for you to remember that our names are there when it comes up.
If you reach the faculty cafe, why are you worried about not being able
I don't know.
Antia, before let's just remember UI Tech. So, and that's our thinking. That's our thinking. So that is why we're including you. We're saying, I don't know if any of you are getting the Monday mentors, and this Monday mentor session focuses on podcasts.
Using your podcast.
Using your podcast to share research.
Yes.
How many of you actually read that? I don't know if any of you have read the Monday mentors. David, you can certainly just go ahead and use the mic, and you can call in.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Really enjoying the session once again. But there was a question that I wanted to ask since yesterday. I hope it fits in. When we were talking about mixed methods, blending quantitative and qualitative research methods for action research. And the reason I'm asking this is, for one, personal experience, but also the number of other PhD candidates that I've interfaced with who have faced similar challenges, in that you have a panel of whom, based on how willing you are to conform to everything that is suggested to you, because the whole idea of PhD research is that you're contributing something original.
Yeah.
But there have been so many cases of, say, members of a panel, 4 persons, who have different opinions on what you're doing. And so you're now faced with a very awkward situation of having to please all, which is kind of impossible, which calls on many candidates to reverse their position on some matters and then proceed with a more unanimous position as far as the panel is concerned. Now, one of the issues that I had was mixed methods. And it was felt that because the easy way out for me would have been to just abandon a quantitative report. But I remember in my discussions with members of the panel who could not agree among themselves on what I was doing, I had used the term, well, basically this is mixed methods, but not purely a mix of quantitative and qualitative, but it is qualitative research with quantitative verification. Mm-hmm. I also said there can be purely quantitative research with qualitative verification. Mm-hmm. The easy way out for me would have been to completely abandon the quantitative part. Mm-hmm. That would have been the easy part, but I was a bit stubborn. And so one of the panelists had said, well, this is grounded theory. It turns out that it was actually critical ethnography. Mm-hmm. But what came up, and this is what I'd like you to remark on specifically, in the arena of mixed methods, because I see 5 categories, either quantitative or qualitative or mixed, but also quantitative with qualitative verification or qualitative with quantitative verification, which includes triangulation. Mm-hmm. And that is where the controversy started. So I know there's data triangulation, there's theory or theoretical triangulation, there's methodological triangulation, and there's environmental triangulation. And I presented a case that what I'm doing here involves methodological triangulation because I'm using qualitative research.
Yes.
But I'm verifying what I found qualitatively with a simple quantitative report. Now, there's a lot of stubbornness within this. Many, especially, a lot of the new and young candidates who just want to get over with the process will say, okay, I'm going to abandon what they're disputing over. But I had stuck with it. And so I'd stuck with that idea of triangulation. So I'd wanted to ask this since yesterday when you were talking about mixed methods, because I see that as I even permit students in the undergraduate level, look, you're doing a quantitative, the small group research projects that they have. And if it's a large group, say 6 or 7 persons in one group and they're doing a 3,000 word report, we'll say, well, one person can write a qualitative report on what you just investigated quantitatively. And it normally works out to be a pretty good essay. You interview someone, you find out the why, and so on. So I wanted your thoughts on the rigidness of sticking to either this or that, quantitative and qualitative, and how flexible you think we should be when it comes to the idea of mixed methods and triangulation.
Thank you, David. I think this is a very important question, and it's a good question because it helps us to really ground some of the things that we explored or began to explore in terms of our research context. And I think it's clear that persons should not choose a methodological approach or paradigm that is not fitting with number one, your research, your worldview, and your research questions, your research aims, and so forth. Because if your question is asking you certain questions, how are you going to achieve that if you're not going to follow through with the paradigm that supports you to respond to that question, or the method that to do? So I think it's important, and this is where I like what you're saying in terms of you may be a little bit stubborn, but that stubbornness does not refuse your involvement in trying to get additional way in coming towards seeing if this is a triangulated response, and if I try to use it that way, what does that look like? And I think that's okay. And I think once you declare that, and I think this is where researchers would say, okay, fine, I've been an experienced research. I know that these questions are saying that I should go down this particular route because it really mounts. But given my worldview and slant, I also want to explore doing it that way. I think this is where you have to declare it, David, and ensure that becomes part. Obviously, your return on efforts, return on investments. If you're going to go that route, and it's not fitness for purpose with your questions, then it becomes something about the trustworthiness about the research and the impact it will have later on. So it's not a simple answer to respond to, but to be very short, I always think that you go towards the question that you're addressing, and obviously aligning to the worldview that we spoke about earlier on, the paradigms from that standpoint.
Yeah.
I'm in full agreement, and to extend the discussion a little further, I would simply respond, this is my personal view, trust your ability to innovate, because new theories are produced.
Yeah.
And coming from a creative positionality, I declare my positionality without reservation. Stubbornness can be a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Stick-to-itiveness, I think, can be a good thing, because it opens the door, it provides an avenue to explore new ground, new areas, and to come up with something entirely new. Howard Gardner wasn't always a name in academia, but today everybody knows Howard Gardner and multiple intelligences. And there are critiques. Yeah. He himself turned around years later and revisited the thing and said, well, what was going on here? But that's part of what it means to be a researcher in academia. Yes. So I find what you just shared to be very interesting, and I think it provides opportunity for discovering new paradigms even. So that's my humble response.
That even sounded like a research on how thesis defense can go all kind of chaotic ways.
The thing is that situations call for stubbornness. Right, but if you have done the work, you did your research, and you know that, okay, this is the way the research should be conducted, and you have 4 other persons coming and telling you, well, one telling you X, one telling you Y, one telling you X and Y, maybe they don't know or understand your side. They just don't know. So you have to be stubborn and try a creative way. I don't want to say, let's refrain from using the word stubborn. Try a creative way to get them to see your side somehow. Yeah. I remember somebody who I report to, sometimes I will not understand certain things. I wouldn't see his perspective. And that will be in a discussion forum. Then he might realize Java just not getting this thing. So I'm going to send him an email with some video to look at and a WhatsApp message, and then that just opened doors for me. I'm starting now to see, oh, this is where he was going. This is what he meant by so and so. And that allowed me now to, I don't want to say entirely change, but to see things from a different,
And I think this as researchers, it's important, because even within our collaborative research, you can have multiple voicedness.
Yes.
Jerry Stahl, in his collaborative work, speak about that in terms of, especially even when you're doing coding and multiple coding and group coding and so forth. I don't want for us to miss the opportunity for our podcast section, for your interaction, because David, so thank you for that. We want to know more dovetail, because it's now 6:26 on the hour, and we want to give the opportunity for the groups to huddle. All right, we wanted to huddle, And within that time, we want to go back. We want to look at, continue the grouping that we did from yesterday, and we want to continue. So the grouping, we're gonna go a short advertisement, and when we come back, you will be placed in your group, and you will be looking at what we just spoke about in terms of sharing that research. Think about the life of your research after you've think about how you're going to share that. I'm not even going to use the word dissemination. How you're going to share it, and how you're going to get persons to think about the output, but also think about the impact, short and long-term impact, sustained impact. Think about those possible things that you can do. So after a break from our sponsor, the ubiquity, we will certainly you will be back in groups. So thank you. In the meantime, in our break, during the break, you can add your questions to the chat, and when you come back, we'll highlight them and we'll address them as we go ahead.
It happens every year, like clockwork. They come at me from everywhere with 5 CXC passes. Their desire, business degrees. I figured that they needed full-time classes, so I sent them to the UE School of Business and Applied Studies, Roytech. They lapped it up. The others do something during the day. They call it work. So I point this one dame to Roytech's evening and weekend classes. She said, "Oh my gosh, you saved my career." And I said, "I know." This kid, real smart, looks up roytech.edu and gets all the info on the Roytech learning experience. Apply now at Henry Street, Port of Spain, or Naparima College, San Fernando. Come to Roytech for the better accepted business degree.
All right. So we want to give you the opportunity to get into your rooms, your breakout rooms. Now, the numbers have changed a bit, so we're giving you the rooms are going to be opened, and so you should remember the rooms that you were in yesterday. And if you're not too sure, those who remain, we will guide you through that whole process. All right. So we're opening the rooms now. We will give you 20 minutes to do this segment, and then we want to come back and we want to interact a little bit more. We want to engage with you a little bit more. So now it's open. You should see it open. Please get into your groups. and we can certainly see it from that standpoint. So in group one, we had Anthea, we had Michelle, and we had Wendell in group one. In group two, we had David. You were there twice. David's iPhone was there as well. And we had Michelle, we had Vishram, and Avalon in group two. In group three, we had Alicia, Christopher, Earl, Rennie, Shaim, and Sherma in group three. So given that, you can certainly go into your groups. We'll assist you to do that, and then we will engage in the activity. So can you do that, please? All right, and then we'll come back and we'll have some more fun. All right, what about that? All right.
Hi, was I put in a group? Hello?
Yeah, I think we're in group 2.
Well, the reason I asked is because he called out the group 2 names, but he didn't call my name now. So I was wondering. I know I was in and out yesterday, so I don't know if that was a sign. That was because of
Well,
that.
I don't know if you were being punished for that. But,
I'm wondering.
but I'm seeing I'm seeing 8 people in. Okay, right.
So
Randy, Desmond, Cheyenne, Anna.
Here.
You're not joining groups.
Yeah.
So join group 2. Go ahead and join group 2.
Who are you telling that? Me or Dr. Mohammed?
No,
Isn't this group 2?
Desmond?
Desmond
Oh,
is
sorry. But I'm not
This is
seeing
group
it.
2, right?
Wait,
Yeah, but I am supposed
No,
to.
you have not joined the group. You need to select.
your prompt on the screen.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, but I'm not seeing it coming
Okay.
up. And was
Yeah, no,
I
it's in
just.
the top left-hand corner. It comes and goes.
Oh, really?
Let me give you a hand.
Yeah, we can put you in the group.
You can also put me, please, Anna. I am not seeing the prompt.
I think Anna is group 1.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm seeing it now. Thank you.
Right, I'm now seeing it.
Where's the other screen?
Have fun.
This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome back to Reutech's Research in Action, and certainly we want to hear from you. We certainly look forward to hearing from you, and please call in, and we want to go quickly to each group, and we'll give you the opportunity to share with us your approach. Share with us how you intend to, or how you envision, how do you propose, how do you anticipate to share your research, your proposed, your tentative research findings, and in a very meaningful way. I want to say thanks to my panel members, and I want you to just go in and take the mic and go ahead and share that with us. I know that we had 3 groups, and they were quite engaged in what they were doing, and so we wanna hear from you now. Group 1, I'm hearing. Can you hear us? Can you hear us? And are you able to hear? Yes.
Just a sound check if you're hearing us.
Are you
can
hearing
type
us?
one in the chat.
Yep, hearing very clearly.
Excellent.
Yes, we're here.
So anybody from group 1? I know we have.
Sure, I am going to go. We weren't quite finished, but anyway. I am going to share my screen. You cannot start share screen while the other participants are sharing. Okay. All right, so I can share screen now?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Oh, that was... Okay, so we decided to use our scenario from yesterday. Yeah?
Yes, yes.
So, I mean, this is very rough and we tried to put it in a PowerPoint. So this is group 1's research paper. The name of our research paper is The Journey from Theory to Practice in Real Estate.
Oh.
So we're using the scenario from yesterday. Now, we had all grand ideas of how we're doing, but this is just really a PowerPoint that's telling you how we are doing it, and we weren't able to assign everything to the presentation. So it's being presented by Wendell, Kevin, myself, Anna. There's Anna.
Hi, Anna.
Myself and Anna. So Wendell and Kevin didn't have avatars, and they were supposed to go. It was time to share, but they weren't able to. So we are using a metaphor to do our presentation, and the metaphor is a viewing of a condo. So the research is going to be presented as the viewing of a condominium. Each part of the research will be represented by an element of the property. So the idea is that we are going to create an animated video using AI, and as the different elements of the condo are revealed, you will hear a voiceover, you will see it written somewhere, what the different parts of the research would be. So each room in the house and each element is a part of the research paper, of the research presentation. You're following me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, so we just were able to do some of them. So the address, the street, so we will be on UE Action Research Street. The number on the property will be the number of pages in the written report. The gate, the front gate of the property will be the title of the research. And you know, when you're entering, you know, at the beginning, you see a bunch of mailboxes.
Yeah.
So the mailboxes will be the table of contents for our research. And then, of course, we go to the elevator to go to our property, and those will be our acknowledgements as we go up to the property. So then well, this is where we kind of finished here. Within the condo now, the foyer of the condo is our introduction. Now we were fighting up with which ones is which. So the living room is the background of the study and the problem, statement of the problem. We weren't sure which one we were fighting up, whether it should be the kitchen or the living room. So I decided to put it in the TV room. The literature review, I don't know if my colleagues agreed because I did this after we closed. Because we wanted, I don't have it in the correct order. We had kind of said maybe the kitchen should be the results but then we had the kitchen as literature review because we thought we were following recipes and so on. So we are still kind of thrashing out which bedroom, which room in the house represents what. And that's when you all close, because of course it took time to prepare this. So of course we still have to assign the master bedroom. We have a study. I was thinking of the balcony, the balcony where you look over and it will be overlooking the Bay of Port of Spain or whatever it is. And that of course will be where you do the conclusion and all those other things where you're looking beyond and you're looking forward and you're saying what you're going to do next. So we still have to figure out where we're putting all the other parts of it, but this is what we came up with so far.
Wonderful.
So,
and just to add to Antio's, and in terms of dissemination, you're thinking that seeing that is going to be an MP4, then social media becomes a avenue where we could get it out there as a YouTube station, a channel, sorry. And then the link could be used in other forums so that you get the research out there, but as Antia said, in a very creative way that's going to grab interest. as opposed to just having it done the traditional way.
Yes.
Well,
And of course, because we do want real estate practitioners to buy into our research, this is the reason why we're presenting it in a format that they would be familiar with as well. So
okay.
it will resonate more with them.
Yes, I am certainly seeing that. I'm certainly seeing that resonance going throughout because you are speaking to them. In other words, you're not giving them a research paper and tell them go read. You are using things that they that's really great. I want to thank you and Anna and Anthea and the rest
Wendell
of
and
the
Kevin.
Wendell. Great job. Thank you. Next, let's move on to group number 2. Any questions? Or for group number 1 before we continue from persons?
We're in the yard having discussions. Join in.
Any questions for group 1? Thank you, group 1. Thank you. All right. Let's put it on. It's supposed to recognize the anyway. All right. So we want to go to group 2. If you can quickly go ahead. Group 2.
Anna, you want to stop your share? Or is it Anthea?
Anthea.
Good. Group 2?
Group 2.
I'm no longer sharing.
Good.
Yeah, that's true. Group 2, you are who? I think it was.
So we have Avalon, Michelle, Vishram.
Vishram?
And 2 Davids.
And David. David squared.
2 Davids.
David times 2.
iPhone and.
Oh no, today it should be just 1.
And perhaps 2 carriers.
I think it's
2 carriers.
2 providers.
2 providers.
2 carriers, yeah. Yeah. Still
You
not
can't go
saying
wrong with
good.
that. You can't go wrong with that, David. Go ahead.
No, Vishram, are you there?
Vishram.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. You want to take this one?
Yeah, sure. Are you all hearing me?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we would have basically looked at how we would present our data. We coming out of what we would have done yesterday, we would not have probably written a paper like how Anthea and they did. But what we looked at is different means by which we can present data in a more realistic or timely manner. We were looking at, for example, let's say we're dealing with enrollment at UWI. We talked about using Power BI and having our statistics transferred into graphical illustrations in almost a live manner. As enrollment numbers change, you could see that changing. Having various, even if we look at for example, where our students come from, and different spots where it can be represented on a map. I don't know if you all would have seen that, like some companies would do that when they show where their customers are from and so on. You'd see a map of the country and then you'd see different lights blinking in those areas, and they would tell you, okay, we have a concentration of, in Reutech terms, a concentration of students from here or there. So we were really looking at different means outside of the usual graph, pie charts, bar charts, histograms, and so on that I usually use in presenting data. We spoke about using something like Power BI. I know Shyam mentioned a couple others that are used and especially in big data and data analytics that are more currently used. Outside of that, let me see if I'm recalling properly. I don't know if Shyam wants to help me here.
I
Right.
can add
Uh-huh.
a bit, just not for too long.
Mhm.
But there are other tools that you can use, like Snowflake, Alteryx, Tableau, that can present these data insights in real time, and they would guide the company in the right direction as to what decisions to make, both strategically, operationally. So for like an educational institution and in terms of research and action research in particular, it will be of major benefit. As mentioned by the esteemed panel today, data does play a big role in that research. So yeah, we were discussing along those lines.
Thank
And
you, Group 1.
okay, all right,
Group
good.
2.
Thank you.
Group 2. Group 2, thank you.
Yes, sure.
Appreciate that. And we really gathered a lot from what you're saying. Are there any questions for Group 2? Any questions, any feedback, any comment? I want to thank you and give you a thumbs up. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Yeah.
I like Power BI, by the way.
Yeah. And the idea of having a dashboard,
Yeah.
for doing that, and immediately, your stakeholders can view that in a perhaps a welcome screen or something. Entering. All right. So we want to go now to Group 3. Group 3.
Mm-hmm.
Group 3.
Alicia, Christopher, Renee.
Michelle.
I don't think. No, Michelle is Group 1.
Group 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Group 3.
Earl.
I think Leon is presenting. Leon, are you there? Leon.
Hi everyone.
Hi, Leon.
Hello. I thought Shirma said she was presenting.
Well, all of you could present, Just anybody could just say what you all thought of this disseminating. How are you going to share your research?
All right, good. So one of the things that we discussed was the different ways that we will have used before. So for example, I will have used presentations, when I worked, and when I will have presented in terms of doing my masters and so on. That is the method that I will have used. I believe Shirma will have mentioned that she would like to use video. She would like to use video to present the information in terms of her type of research, because it could it could leave a long-term impact. Because one of the things that we discuss as well is that we don't want the research to be short-lived. We want to have a long-term impact. So Shirma will have discussed a video, and I believe Mr. Brown will have mentioned using YouTube and other social media methods, whether it is Twitter, because the research could last for a very long time. But we did not really discuss any specific topic. We were basically just discussing along our prior, the research that we would have done before. It was general in that way, and discussing ways in which we can use what you all will have shared with us, so that our research could not only be short-lived but have a long-term impact.
Yes. Shirma actually spoke about, she said she's involved with inclusive education, and she would have used, she was thinking of doing a movie because of the nature of the, in terms of some of the work that she's doing. I also shared that I had at school, actually, I had taught my children to do things like Flipgrid, where they can present short videos of work that they were doing. I would tell them, for example, so the research, so we could use some of the media, some of the tools that we have, some of the apps that we have within the existing tools like Flipgrid. We also have things like Switch and some other apps that can be used. For example, a person could do a series of reels during research effort, where you convene these, you you do these broadcasts, so people are all along the journey of the research, and also and a lot of these things are now asked to be stored in the cloud, so you have a trail of the whole research journey, which can also be presented in a grand style. We also spoke about the idea of the workshop, the idea of using a workshop to present to peers. So even before we present the final things to submissions, we can have a workshop day, which will also include students as well. In those research projects that involve students, they could also be involved in the workshops.
Great, and this is really exciting, and you left me thinking about the many ways in which I saw both traditional and non-traditional, and I certainly want to thank the group. We recognize that this was just an effort, and I want to give you thumbs up as well. Thumbs up, group 3. Any questions for group 3? Any questions for group 3? No? Any suggestions? Well, I want to say thank you to all 3 groups in doing your your feedback, sharing that, and I can see already some of the great things that you're about to do. And I don't know if any of the panelists have any ideas, but before we give our closing remarks for this podcast, I just want to say that the workshop comes to an end, but our commitment to you and supporting you does not come to an end until maybe June 30th. All right, so certainly what we want to do is to remind you of your need to do the first part, and try and get that June the 15th, is it? May the 15th. May the 15th. And the second part is May the 26th. So those 2 dates. I don't know, as we close in this section, I don't know if what closing remarks each panelist member will have in terms of this particular area, and then we will come back on a whole. We'll do a reflective activity on a whole, and then we will allow you to continue. I think it's important that you collect your contact information. Some of you may not have been good on with each other, so I really want to allow you to do that. I don't know, is there a way for them to do that within Talent MLS, or perhaps they should do that?
They could message each other.
They could message each other.
Yeah. But I keep checking the LMS. I will update the section on assignments, so they will know exactly where to submit and how to submit. Yeah.
And I think when we're submitting, it's a group assignment, so only one person is needed to submit
for the group assignment. But the individual reflections, you will have a space to submit your individual reflection. Yeah.
And by the way, you have 20% for completing the participation, and you need to go through the course. And I must say, congratulations. We're seeing a drastic increase of persons who are able to go through, and I'm not seeing many persons who are yet to start, but we still have a few of them. I think those are those who were not in the course space, but certainly for those of us who've been here, we are seeing you completing the activities. All right, and I want to give my panelists a round of applause in supporting through this activity, and I also want your closing statements, and then we're going to complete a reflective activity when we leave.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dr. Hill. And I want to say very quickly, thank you so much, colleagues. This has been a really, really enlightening experience for me personally. I truly enjoyed interacting with you. And as we have come to the end of these synchronous sessions, I want to encourage you to trust your innate creative ability. And I also would like to encourage you to explore creative methods for disseminating your research when you eventually complete the new action research projects that you will be embarking upon in the not too distant future. And I just want to leave you with one type of creative method, performance dialogy to consider. So on that note, thank you so much again, and all the best.
Okay, friends, thank you. It was enjoyable.
Short, sweet, and
I was
spicy.
now going to say, I was glad everybody else took the formal part, because you hear people sing a song about save the best for last and all those nice things about the last. But I giving you it the way I would remember it. The best part of the pail is the bun. The bottom of the pot. So, the end of the workshop today, we saw so many new things that we bounced off of each other, not four of us, among yourselves, to hear some of the ideas that came across the discussions. It was really enjoyable. I enjoyed it listening to you. I hope you all enjoyed the format that we used today as the bun, and it is something that if you found it useful, why not try it?
Yeah.
As with everything else, as Dr. Jones said, just be creative, do something new for your own mental health too.
True.
For your own mental health too.
Wards off Alzheimer's.
Yeah. And we enjoyed getting to know you all over the week, and we look forward to being with you through the rest of it.
Yeah.
And I think also, Mark, we look forward to the presentation for the face-to-face activity, which is the presentation. I think that's going to be an awesome event where we can crowdsource.
No, that's a new part.
So I want to say thank you. I want to put in the chat our final Padlet activity. We're really soliciting. This is really helpful to us. And if you see this, that means we are inviting you, as you do, to really give us some insightful feedback. We will also be sending you a link to our additional feedback. And that is going to be shared perhaps tomorrow.
Yeah, that's going to be via your Reutech email.
Yes.
And an announcement in the LMS.
In the LMS.
As well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So we want that feedback because that feedback is important to us. It's important to us in a very meaningful way because we want to know if we're doing this again, how can we, what can we do differently? Yeah. But help us here. What are the key takeaways from this workshop? You can also share any insights you think of what you think you was looking for more, and certainly we know. In fact, we do have a presentation. We do have a PowerPoint presentation, but we certainly deconstructed the PowerPoint into this because we felt we really wanted to give you that sort of more that format. All right, and we came over this just in a matter of yes, because we felt like, we have the PowerPoint, but let's try something different. Let's try something different. And you may, as a researcher, come to the point of, and we do this all the time as instructors, by the way, because you do have your lesson planned, and then all of a sudden you say, okay, I'm going to do something different. But because you understand the content, you understand the process, you can certainly... And the people. And I think for us, thank you for taking part in the data that you shared, because that really had a way in helping us decide and how and the approach that we certainly will take. So we're seeing some of you have started logging onto the site, but if you can go ahead, we certainly, it's anonymous. It's an anonymous activity. This is the overall takeaway. What are the key takeaways for the workshop? Any commendations, any suggestions, you can also put that in there as well. All right, and we will allow this to be an opportunity. If you want to hold the mic, if you want to take the mic, if you also want to put something in the chat, we recognize that this is competition for the Padlet, but we believe in multiple pathways. And some of you may want to do that. So I'm seeing someone saying here that action research is a lived experience itself and a vital element of lifelong learning as an educator. Thank you. I'm gonna heart this. All right. So you have one heart, whosoever it is, I don't know. The person has that there. All right, anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone?
So, Dr. Hill?
Yes, go ahead.
So based on what you said, you're abandoning us after June 30th?
I'm hoping my language was not so precise.
All right.
No. I'm just saying this part of the commitment. I did indicate that. I did indicate. In fact, the initial idea for this was to make it a little longer, but we felt quick gains is important for learners, and so that is why we say, okay, fine. Let's begin to bring in that experience, so you can mirror that in when you're doing your. In other words, you can easily in September, when September come, have something as a proposal as groups to advance. And by the way, they have prizes. They have prizes. They fund. The fund. If you go through the documents, there's funding for you to do that, and that's a great incentive, because you may be wondering, okay, are you going to use your own funds? And certainly you can draw on that. So David, I hope that is helpful.
Well, yes, thank you. I enjoyed the sessions very much, and they were very helpful. I myself am about to embark on a project of action research for UWI Tech, under the guidance as well as of Michelle Collins. So that's something we're looking forward to very much as well. It will be from May to September.
Okay, that sounds exciting. Exciting. Well, keep us in the loop. I mean, we're only an email away, a call away, and we are always ready and willing. So best wishes, and we look forward to seeing you in the presentation. So the presentations, I'm thinking ahead. I'm thinking ahead. Yes, I'm seeing some very insightful comments here. And so we want to thank you for taking part. Keep the comments coming in. I'm seeing some of them coming in. Thank you, David. Anyone else wants to say anything? Any feedback, comment? Feel free to hold in the mic. If not, we want to say thank you and best of wishes as you go forward. Any questions that you may have, please continue. We are here to address any of the additional questions. And certainly I like the use of variety of presentation methods. We appreciate that. We see that coming there. Action research is valid. I'm seeing that one already. I'm motivated by the way you treated the material. Excellent workshop. Loved how you led by example, and it keeps moving. So let me just make this a little smaller so they can see it. All right.
You can also feel free to chime in any little tidbits on your LMS experience.
Yes, as well.
Was it easy to use, difficult, 1 to 5?
Well, what we can do, we can put that.
It's gonna come in
yeah, it's gonna come in the stuff. It's gonna come. So we wouldn't put them under all that pressure for now.
If they want to turn the mic on and say something about the experiences,
yeah, that would be great as well. All right. Thank you, folks. Thank you so much. We recognize that you may want to stay on, but we want to keep to the 7 o'clock, and we just want to wish you. I know. Some of you have to travel, or some of you may be home, but albeit, we want to say thank you so much.
Yeah, just making that time so you can see what I look like. I need to shave though.
I appreciate that. Let's see if we can recognize the face. So if we don't pass each other straight, if I see you, and if you don't mind, I can pin to the first screen. To the second screen, so we can spotlight you.
Okay, thank you,
everyone. Yes.
I think everybody knows
right there. So Earl, that's you. So Earl, you attended the cafe.
Yes, I did. Yes.
How did you find it?
It was very, very well. I mean, it was excellent, and that's why Auntie and I were very interested. We were very piqued by the presentation that we saw, and we took so that we definitely are going to put those things into practice.
Thank you.
I have
I recognize the spotlighting.
Oh, the spotlighting, yes. The spotlight feature. And we spoke about that. Because we say, you know what, there are some persons who are not logging on. They're not. Let's use Papaya's, which is the person who presented spotlight feature.
Yes. Yes.
All right, yes.
So you know, it's really, this is really, really exciting. I really like the approach that you took. I think it demonstrated the kind of variety that can be used, even in research. It also takes away from the humdrum as well. The fact that the creative juices, and we also excite the students as well. I was sharing with my group that I taught a topic in Quantitative Methods, and a student told me she was so excited. She went and she taught people, all of her siblings and her friends about the topic. And I would say it would have been interesting. So what I'm going to do this term is that I'm going to share Flipgrid with all my students and show them how to do it so they can take their devices. So that moment that she did that, she can capture it and then bring it back in the next class and share. You know, I was teaching my siblings the topic. So it's a way in which they kind of self-teach. So I guess we can use the same methods. Even when we are doing this action research, we could have a pop in time, probably a Friday session where we just share where we at in our research. And that's a way in which you can stimulate interest and kind of encourage each other in the journey. So you have really excited and motivated us to really dig deep. We thank you for that. Well, I thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Earl.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Anyway, folks, thank you so much. I want to thank you for your participation. Really appreciate it. All who would have contributed in any way, we certainly think that you participate and you made it great. Thank you so much, and good night.